Good morning, it's Yvonne here to do your What's Cracking reading. Thank you so much for subscribing to my channel. We finally hit 16,000 overnight. So exciting for me because the channel seemed to really stick for a while. So I'm very excited that we're over 16,000. Because of that, I'm going to offer a competition on my Facebook page. I'll try and get that up today to celebrate the 16,000. I thought of doing it on YouTube, but I think it's a little complex, so we'll see how we go. Or what I might do is find another way to say thank you to you all. Okay, so just a reminder that I have an intermediate tarot class on the 18th of September. At this stage, we're about half full, so if you want to get into that, I don't go over 10. I would more happily do it for under 10 than over. So if you are already sort of savvy with the basics of tarot, then the intermediate tarot would be really good for you. I'm having a little demand again for the beginners class, so I'm thinking of running another one of those in October. Also keep in mind too that we're about half full on our live platform event, which goes to air on Zoom. Again, numbers capped at 20 and we're around about halfway through that. So if you're interested in that, we are doing that on a Saturday morning so that we can include as many places as possible because some people say they can't join because of the time difference. So we wanted to make sure that we do them at different times so that you can join us. Both Linda and I, the Psychic Pin-Up, and I really love to do these events. So if you are interested in that, it is on my Facebook page at the Aussie Goddess. Okay, I think that's everything I need to bring in this morning. We're going to use the Tarot of the Divine for your reading this morning. I like to keep a few different decks out to use because I like to go between decks so that I'm not using the same deck. That way the messages, they still repeat, unfortunately. Well, I shouldn't say unfortunately. What I should say is no matter how many decks I use, I pretty much get the same cards coming through on any particular day. And I know that's Spirit 100% backing me. So, and I pulled these out this morning and I fell in love with these when I first saw them, but I haven't used them very much. I have this thing about overusing tarot decks because some of them just don't last as well as others. Some of them they get chipped and torn very, very easily. So, and that makes me feel a bit sad, especially if I love the tarot deck that I'm using. All right, I think that's everything. All right, I feel like, that we are ready. I love it. Sometimes when I'm ready, Spirit knows, and the deck will just split automatically for me to use. And other times I'll just keep shuffling and they won't give me a clean split, and I'm like, I know that I need to keep shuffling. So we have the Ten of Pentacles coming through. The Ten of Pentacles is a card that talks of abundance. It talks very often of inheritance or large sums of money coming through. It can signify, a huge win for people, but that doesn't mean go out and buy lottery tickets. Don't gamble unnecessarily. If this is coming to you, it will come to you as it's meant to. So there's definitely something abundant coming your way, but keeping in mind it isn't always financial abundance. Sometimes this can just be feeling so good with your life that everything is falling into place and everything is beautiful. And the abundance comes from the heart. So whatever it is coming in here, there's going to be such an elation, such a good feeling that it's like you've hit the mark here. So we have the Two of Pentacles coming through. So there's some sort of decision here with the Two of Pentacles. The Two of Pentacles is a little bit of a different decision though. Sometimes it can be the choice between two people. It can be the choice between two jobs. And it can always be, as I see it very, very often in readings, especially personal readings, that choice you need to make where you have to make a choice from the head rather than the heart, or a choice of a heart over head decision. A choice between your logic and your spirituality. And I've been doing a lot of work on this over the last few weeks on understanding how we become over emotional, not in a sort of way, but we tend to sort of lean into our emotions to make decisions, which means your decisions or the way you talk about things or the way you address things can sometimes come from a place of your emotions rather than your logic. I guess we can see it with people at the moment with the difference in the world, how people are making choices based in their emotions. So it's very much on the agenda for Spirit at the moment to address this. And I wonder with the Two of Pentacles here, whether there is some sort of decision we need to make where we have to put the emotions aside, especially people who've gone through childhood trauma. Emotions have been your greatest savior during that time. You might have used emotions to manipulate. You may have used emotions to get what you want. Chucking tantrums is a really good indication. But it also is being over emotional, you know, when someone's upset with you or getting into your emotions in that regard, which leaves us up to, being very empathic and at risk of being abused as adults because we tend to look through the eyes of emotion. So, when we meet someone and you're falling in love, or it's the first time you've met someone and you really sort of have that obsessive or limerence, they call it. So what happens is you immediately go in with your emotions and you ignore everything else about that person. That's why when we're falling in love, the other person doesn't seem to have any flaws or faults. It's all emotional. So I feel like here, this is what the universe is really pushing for at the moment, for us to understand how our emotions drive us. And like I said, we can see it in the world with people at the moment because you can see the emotions overflowing in people, the fear, the anger, all of those sort of emotions, rather than looking at what is logical, what makes sense here. But nobody's doing that. They're just going straight to emotions. All right, so we have the High Priestess here, which sort of supports that completely. The High Priestess is a card that talks about using your intuition, understanding the deepest sort of messages within you. And again, if you're in your emotional brain, you are not listening to the intuition. So again, using the example of, falling in love or falling in love with something, or even going into a brand new job, and everybody can relate to all these new situations. You go into a new job and everything is wonderful. You're so consumed by your feelings of something new that all you do is think about all the good stuff. And then after a few weeks, people start talking about how toxic the workplace is, how bad things are, and how unhappy they are. And all of a sudden you start to see things, and that's when this starts to kick in. But in the beginning, you are so consumed with your emotion that you don't see what's really going on. So it happens in all things in life where we become overly emotional and less likely to stick to what we know best. So the Nine of Coins is here, so I really see why this is coming through. The Five of Swords. All right, and the King of Coins. Okay, so for some of you, this could be, there's a lot of energy around new relationships starting at the moment, people moving away from, other journeys, other people, other situations to move into new situations. Coming through very greatly in the readings this morning. The King of Pentacles here is what I see as the partner or husband card. But it's a card in its entirety of being very stable, being very practical with things you do. This is a person who is really focused on the more logical things in life, the more tangible things, such as money, such as having a stable environment, good food, looking after yourself. That's the sort of energy with the King of Pentacles. And when I look at this, I feel like somehow or another you may be choosing here to stay with yourself at the moment or work on yourself with this Nine of Pentacles. It's very much a card of becoming independent, self-sufficient, letting go of those base emotions that create those energies that I was just talking about, where you're not really seeing the world for what it is because you're approaching everything through your emotional brain. This is about moving away from that. So I feel like you're moving into the energy of the King of Pentacles. And what is happening here is you're starting to understand how to be more practical about things. So you would start to look at things very differently. So, when you walk into a new place, instead of being so overwhelmed by your happiness and joy, you would put that aside and just start to understand how. That doesn't mean you still can't be happy and joyful. Not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you become the observer. And I always talk about being the observer of your own actions. And sometimes we act from emotion rather than acting from what is practical and logical. So just being that observer and asking yourself, is this right for me? Am I not seeing anything in this new workplace? I have walked into managed workplaces that have been so incredibly toxic, but I've been so excited about starting that journey and working in that particular place. I haven't even seen that for the first 3 or 4 weeks. And it usually is when people start to trust you a little bit more that they will start coming forward and say, hey, this is what's going on behind the scenes. And all of a sudden you realize you've picked up a really toxic role. And the same thing happens if you get into a situation where you're so consumed by your joy and happiness that you forget to look at things from a logical perspective. And this is real temperance energy. This is about understanding how to have a balance of both. So I feel like that's what the universe is saying here. You need to always sit with your observing brain or your observations. You can still be joyful and happy, and you can still enjoy something, but always make sure you see things for what they are, rather through looking at them through the eyes of a child. So it's definitely something learned, a learned behaviour. And it's really interesting because some of the great people on this planet talk about being in the observer brain. So I don't know whether they term it that way, but certainly Eckhart Tolle is one person who really got me doing that many, many years ago. All right, so I have the 4 of Cups coming through. The 4 of Cups talks, in the traditional tarot, we see somebody being offered a cup. And the cup that they are being offered, they're either turning away from, they have their arms folded, or they're just not interested in that cup. Sort of giving rise to this idea of boredom or ennui, as the traditional reading goes. In life, we see this as refusing something because it doesn't suit you, it's not the right time for you, it's just not the cup that you're waiting for. And this card is saying to me, something is going to be offered to you here where the universe is asking you to look at it through your logical brain rather than just through your emotions. If this is about a love offer, then it's about getting through that first stage of limerence, or the falling in love stage, where we become obsessive and so overwhelmed by our emotions that we don't really look at what's going on. So I see... I tried to move my camera around yesterday or my iPad, and I look like I've got it in a better position now. So let's see how we go with this. All right, so we have the Ace of Swords. Beautiful. So what we're doing here is we're learning to see the truth of a situation. We're not looking at the situation just through the eyes of our emotional self. I'm trying to think of sort of other examples. I love to give sort of little examples of how this is coming across here. But sometimes, say for example, somebody's done something to you and you immediately go into the emotional stuff and you start, getting upset back or ranting back or whatever else, and then realise the person isn't talking about what you've gone off on a tangent with. That's because you've gone straight into your emotions rather than looking at it from a practical, logical point of view. Sometimes we can get this sort of over-emotional energy when we're upset by something somebody else is doing, and we don't really think from this logical perspective, like it might be unrealistic for us. So we just stay in this emotional energy. So that's definitely what's coming through here from Spirit. All right, we have the 7 of Pentacles and the 8 of Pentacles coming through here. I feel like for some of you, this may be in reference to a new job or some sort of new situation that you've found yourself in. And it's sort of like, to me, is the universe saying to you here, remember what you've learned. So maybe some of you have done work on yourself and you feel really confident about what you've learned. But maybe again, sort of jumping back into this old energy of yourself, or dropping back into what you were doing before. Because for me, there is something to do with your work or your job here that's coming through. The Seven of Coins is about being patient. It's about waiting patiently. But what I get here is that maybe this will require you to be patient with yourself while you're learning how to adjust to this new way of doing things, this new way of seeing things. But it's like opening your eyes here. And, you know, the whole idea of the ego is that, you know, as a child, we are taught certain things and certain ways of doing things, and we act from our most base instincts because that's what keeps us safe. But here I feel like you're being asked to be patient with yourself while you're working on this, while you're starting to understand what this means to you. Yeah, it's an illusion. Very good. No, beautiful. Okay. So what you've built for yourself is an illusion here. So your illusion here is about seeing life through your emotions rather than seeing them through your logic, through having clarity. And what you've got to learn to do, and this is why obviously we've been getting the Temperance card through a lot more lately, because it's about balancing these out. The Temperance card very much talks about divine timing as well, but the divine timing comes as a result of you having balance, and that's what raises your vibration. When you're in your emotional brain or your primary brain or your primitive brain, some people call it the reptilian brain, you are acting from emotion. And that is where we go when we're upset. Those base emotions take us straight to that reptilian brain, and we act out of emotion. What we are learning to do through our spirituality is watching the world around us. Don't be consumed by the illusion, because the illusion is what you've learned to do. But here tells me with this Ace of Swords, the truth of this is that you've got to learn to see things for what they are. You can't be stuck in this illusion. So if this is something like a job, which it looks like for some of you here, whatever you're working on here, don't get consumed in your emotions. Learn to look at things logically. It's funny because I have a couple of people around me that when they're in this energy would call me up to get me to focus them back on what is really going on. So this idea of sort of bringing people back to looking at things from a very base point of view rather than getting locked into the emotion. So I feel like this is what you're doing here. But the Wheel of Fortune tells me they're preparing you for something here. You're being prepared for something. It's like you're being honed or tuned in to a new energy because there's a situation coming at you here where you need to be more in your logical mindset. Eight of Swords. That is the illusion, the Eight of Swords. So we sometimes see it as being locked into our brain or locked into our thinking, victim mentality. All of these things are about us being locked into this energy where we're not really seeing what's going on because we're too consumed by what's going on inside us. So we miss things. We miss things. We don't see what's actually going on. And the Star card is here. I feel like you're being prepared. Well, maybe we all are being prepared for something here. There's really this very strong energy here that with the Star card especially and the Wheel of Fortune, it's like you're being guided in a direction to meet, and I want to say the new earth, because it's very much this energy of looking at things from a practical point of view rather than letting your emotions take over. And we saw it when COVID first started coming around. Everybody was scared, everybody was fearful, everybody was getting emotional about it. But in reality, you just need to take steps. And once we understood the steps, then it was a completely different story. The danger hasn't been taken out of it, but you're seeing it in a very different way. So you're becoming aware of what you're doing in that situation. But we do it. We run in with the emotions. We run in and we get emotional about things. We say things we shouldn't say. We speak up for things we shouldn't speak up for, instead of looking at what is the truth of this situation. And that is coming through very, very clearly here with the Ace of Swords. All right, so we have some sort of abundance coming. So maybe the abundance is coming as a result of you taming or using your energies in a very different way. There is some sort of decision, some sort of way of doing things that you're balancing up here. And I feel that the universe is asking you to really strongly trust your intuition in situations rather than your base emotions. There's definitely, with the 9 of coins, some energy around you being more fulfilled, being more happy, and maybe that's how you bring in the abundance. And you are moving away from some sort of energy here that you've become accustomed to move towards this practical, down-to-earth, logical sort of energy with the King of Cups. Now, that doesn't mean you can't have emotions. It doesn't mean that you can't sort of get carried away in things. That's okay. But when you're getting carried away in things where you're not using your logical mind, it's got to be a balance of both. It's got to be a balance of both. So being able to sort of, be taken up with the joy and happiness of something, but keeping yourself centered and in this logical mindset is so important for you to reach this abundance, to be able to have what you want in your life. It's very self-developmental, self-love energy coming through here. I actually don't need to put another card on that because the Star card really says it all at the end here. You're being prepared for something destined here. There's no doubt about that in my mind. All right, let's have a look and see what we get in the Oracle cards here. Beautiful. Something will be revealed in a dream or through someone you trust. The information sheds light on something that has remained hidden from you for some time. Suddenly the missing piece of the puzzle appears and you are able to see the bigger picture. So maybe some of you are getting this energy through in your dreams, maybe some of them, meditation. Sometimes we slip with our meditation practices and then we realize we need to get back into that. So maybe for some of you it's just a reminder. I'll leave you with that. Thank you.